All right, folks, we're going to get started. I know everyone has had a long day already, and we're at the tail end, so if eyes gloss over, we won't take it personally. It's okay. We're going to talk a little bit about study abroad opportunities at Creighton. So there's a lot of information to go into, and we're just going to give a brief overview of kind of the different ways that Creighton supports study abroad, different things that are available, and then some places where you or your students can go get some more information. So do we have anyone from Omaha today? Or is everyone from out of town? All right, welcome. Shout out, where are you from?
Denver.
Wisconsin, Denver, Milwaukee, California,
Kansas City.
KC Mo, KCK.
Kansas.
Kansas, all right.
Minneapolis.
St. Louis, Minneapolis, love it. All right, well, welcome guys. Well, no, oh, he didn't actually want in. My name's Jill. I work in the Global Engagement Office with our study abroad students. I work mainly and pretty much exclusively with our students going to the Dominican Republic. So we have a lot of programming in the DR. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. But I work with students only going to that small island. My colleague Lizzie works with students going literally everywhere else in the world, so she has a much harder job than I do. And if you want to tell a little
I
bit
work primarily with the College of Nursing and the College of Arts and Sciences, and then we have a third colleague who's in Italy currently, poor soul, and she works primarily with the Heider College of Business. So whatever school that your student is in, there's a specific coordinator for them to work with.
Yeah. So we'd like to just start off with a question we always start asking students as soon as they come into our office is, what is study abroad and what does study abroad mean to you or mean to the students? And here at Creighton, it really is any time that a student is traveling outside of the university, outside of the country, to earn credit towards his or her degree here at Creighton. So that can be a lot of different things. That can be a full academic semester or year or summer abroad where they're actually taking classes. That can be some volunteers, some service learning hours, that can be internships, all types of different things. But anything where a student is basically traveling outside of our borders, doing some sort of degree completion or progress towards their degree that will transfer back and reflect here at Creighton. So one thing that's really important that we always try to make sure students know, but parents as well, is that any student who's traveling abroad and taking some classes overseas, all study abroad credits must be approved in advance before the student even goes abroad to study abroad. So that means that there's very little chance that your child's going to go abroad and come back and Creighton's going to say, oops, that didn't count for anything, because there are a lot of steps and a lot of hoops to jump through to make sure that your student knows exactly how those classes will reflect back on his or her transcript at Creighton. So there's a pretty extensive course, decision-making process, course approval process, but that is something that is really good because it makes sure that students know what they're getting themselves into and what things are going to look like when they get back to Creighton here. And it is important to know that credit can't be granted retroactively after students return. So they really do have to go through that process of course approval before they go with us. But it's really a kind of a safety net and insurance piece for them. And we always like to ask students, why do they want to study abroad too? Some people have a really, they've always wanted to study abroad. Their parents or someone else studied abroad, maybe, older siblings did. Some people have literally no idea when they come into our office and they say, I don't know, it seems kind of cool. And they say, yes, it is very cool. And we're very glad that you're in our office so we can talk to you about that. And these are just a few of the things that we like to touch on. It's a great time to learn or improve a language if you're looking to become bilingual or a little more fluent. It's a great opportunity to take classes in a new city. This will likely be a new city for nearly all the students here, it sounds like. But we have opportunities abroad in cities that are a similar size to Omaha, that are much bigger than Omaha, cities that are much smaller than Omaha. So it's an opportunity for students to get a different taste as well. And really a chance to become independent. I know I really became self-sufficient when I studied abroad. I was a junior in undergrad, and there's something about having to solve problems yourself when you're half a world away. I didn't have a cell phone when I studied abroad, which is dating me a little bit, but I really, my confidence grew and my independence grew, and our students that study abroad here at Creighton, we see that when they come back as well. Students really do learn how to adapt to new situations and interact with new cultures. We have a lot of international students and a lot of cultures here on Creighton's campus, which is really exciting. We're happy to have that. But to be immersed in a completely new culture is just a deeper experience. And really, if your student is thinking about, studying business, going into one of the medical fields, nursing, psychology, marketing, anything like that, there are so many skills that they will learn in a semester or a summer or a program abroad that's going to help transition into whatever professional career they have. And we also do like to tell students that this really is the best time of their life to explore the world, and I truly do feel that way. Sometimes students will say, I don't know, there's a lot of stuff on campus, I don't really know if I want to miss out on that, and I think I'm going to go backpack Europe after I graduate with my friends, which is great. You can do that, and some people do that. But I think what I try to get students to recognize is as soon as you graduate, then bills come and loans come, and real world kind of smacks you in the face as soon as you're done. So really, to be able to live abroad for 4 or 5, even 8 months, this is a wonderful time. And I do like to show a map, and we're going to put some stars up on here in a minute to show you the kind of the breadth and depth of Creighton's study abroad programs that we already have partnerships with. So there are several schools that might have 1 or 2 different study abroad opportunities that they have maybe one center that they work with, and all their students go to that country or that place. And Creighton, while we do have one program that we run ourselves, which is in the Dominican Republic, we also have partnership programs all around the world where all of these yellow stars are that you can see. And anywhere you see a yellow star is where we have what we call a Creighton in partnership program that Lizzie will talk about in a little bit. And that means that we already have a partnership with a university in this country. So we have a very diverse array of different countries, regions, areas of the world, places people can study. And that just shows a little bit of the support that we have in Study Abroad at Creighton through our president as well. And I always like to overlay this too with, now you see the red stars that show up. Just because we might not have a Creighton in partnership program in one specific location doesn't mean that a student can't study abroad there through one of our other partnerships. We have different exchange programs that we work with. So you can see all of these red stars that are added are all places that we have had students study abroad in the past probably 2 years. So while we do have a lot of yellow stars, we have a lot more red stars as well. So if a student is really interested in studying abroad, perhaps in Vietnam for a semester, while we don't have a yellow star partnership there right now, it doesn't mean that we can't work with your student to get him or her to Vietnam through one of our other partnerships. So I just like to show this map because it really reflects kind of the diversity of the partners that we have and the different programs that we have around the world. And another thing that I think is really great about Study Abroad at Creighton is the university works really hard to make it affordable and accessible to students through a lot of different ways. And one of those is through those yellow star programs, those Creighton in partnership programs. If your student chooses to study abroad for a semester or a year at one of those, all of their tuition and scholarships and financial aid through Creighton will apply to that semester abroad. So that's huge because there are a lot of universities that say you can go abroad, but we're going to keep our scholarships. With all those partnership programs that we have, scholarships and financial aid will apply to tuition abroad as well, which is huge. And of course, federal and financial aid can transfer as well. There are also quite a few scholarships available through some different divisions and departments here at Creighton. There are also lots of outside scholarship resources that our office works pretty hard to keep up on. So we know, if a student's interested in going to study abroad in maybe Japan or South Korea, there are some specific scholarships that are really good for those types of locations. And then we also have, with our diversity of locations, there are several locations with a pretty low cost of living. So Omaha, depending on where you're coming from, Omaha usually has a pretty low, pretty reasonable cost of living, especially from, compared to the States. Even Denver, I lived in Denver for a few years and I moved back and I was like, rent is so cheap here. But there are a lot of locations that if cost is really a factor, we can look at some of those locations that have a lower cost of living. So that means that accommodation costs might be a little bit lower and the cost of just kind of existing and being in that country is a little bit lower and makes it a little bit more affordable. Anything that I'm missing so far, Lizzie?
No.
No? You want to take it over?
Yeah, absolutely. So Like Jill said, I work primarily with our nursing and College of Arts and Sciences students, which means I also end up working a lot with the pre-med, pre-health students as they're beginning their process and deciding where they'd like to go. As part of that process, students do need to begin thinking really early about what is required for them to study abroad. Because study abroad is a privilege, it does come with some ties, some strings, so students do need to maintain a 2.5 GPA or higher when they're applying to study abroad. Some of the students have already heard, I think, about programs, for example, with the honors program. There's a specific study abroad program in Scotland that is great for honors students. That program, for example, has a bit higher of a GPA, so that one's a 3.0. So I encourage students, as soon as they start thinking about it, check and double check what the requirements are for your program so that you know whether or not you're eligible early. Students do need to have sophomore standing, so they need to complete 1 full year at Creighton, and they can begin to study abroad the summer after their freshman year. So we do have students participate in summer programs right after that first year is finished. They also do need to be clear of disciplinary sanctions, so this is a good one maybe as family to say, all right, let's stay away from the partying. If you're thinking about studying abroad, you don't want to have any disciplinary sanction of any kind on your record, because that will affect you when you're trying to apply to study abroad. And of course, making satisfactory progress toward their degree. So Creighton's Global Engagement Office, we do work with their advisors to make sure that they're making progress and that they will be able to graduate on time with studying abroad. Okay. Cool. So as we've been talking about these Creighton In programs, these programs are anywhere from a full semester to a full year abroad. We do, as I've been mentioning, have a lot of summer, short-term, winter break, spring break type programs as well. But for those ones where they're maintaining scholarships and everything the same, those partnership programs do last for 1 semester or an academic year. And you do pay tuition and fees directly to Creighton. I know that that's been a big question coming up as students are determining whether or not this will be feasible for them. You would continue to pay Creighton's tuition and fees through the nest, just as you do now. The cost of living, apartment style, host families, those kinds of things could differ depending on the location, but the tuition and fees would stay the same. So that also applies for those students who have tuition remission and FAYCHEC. There are indeed exchange program options where they would not have to pay anything additional outside of their discounted tuition and fees through that program. And I'm happy to answer more questions about that too. Awesome. So this is a list of just our current Creighton In programs. It feels like it gets longer every year. We add 2 or 3 exchange and affiliate programs every single year based on students' feedback. So we had a ton of students who wanted to go to France last year, and every year since I've worked here actually. So we ended up partnering with an institution in France just this past spring semester. So this list is always growing. By the time your student is a sophomore or junior, it might even be longer. So there's a lot of different options all over the world for students to choose. Awesome. And for the Encuentro program, I will have Jill speak a little about that since that's her program.
Yes, this is my area of the world. Just this little one right here. So you may have heard about Creighton's programs in the Dominican Republic. We have a very unique partnership with the DR, and we've been running different programs with our partners there for over 45 years. And we've been running Encuentro Dominicano, which is our full semester study abroad program in the DR for 25 years. So it's a really unique program. It's the only study abroad opportunity that Creighton currently designs and manages and runs ourselves in-house. So we have a Creighton faculty member that lives and teaches in the DR for us. And students who are participating in the semester abroad take the Magis Core courses, which really apply across the board to students studying anything, because they're courses that a student would have to take here on campus too. So that makes it really accessible. And it is a service learning program, so there's service and volunteerism built in throughout the whole semester in terms of volunteering at different service sites throughout the city that we partner with, and then we also do some immersions into the rural communities in the DR and do some service projects alongside community members as well. So a lot of students are really interested in this program because a lot of students come to us at Creighton kind of with a heart to serve and be for and with others, and this is a really great way to continue that across throughout your study abroad experience. And it is pretty much the exact same cost as a semester at Creighton, so that makes it pretty easy as well. You would pay your tuition and fees and room and board to Creighton just as if you were here on campus. You would just be kind of on our campus in the Dominican Republic. And then there are a lot of chances to explore the island, academic and student life excursions that are all included as well. So this is really one of those programs that has a much lower cost of living. That is a good option for students who are looking for things that are a little bit more, students who are a little more financially conscious also. So I'm happy to answer more questions if you have any questions about that later.
Great. So again, some of the semester and year-long programs that are most popular, we've mentioned a lot of times, but a lot of students are interested more in a summer or shorter term opportunity. And for those, primarily, we have faculty-led programs abroad. That's a really big choice for over 150 students each summer. There are between, I'd say, 15 and 20 faculty-led programs each summer, spring break, fall break, or winter break, and they go all over the world. So what that means is that a faculty member, maybe a student's own professor, would talk to students throughout the year about their opportunity. Maybe they teach a history and an English lit course in Ireland each summer. And then students, a group of about 15 or 20 students would go with that faculty member and another staff or faculty so that they could travel for anywhere between 2 to 8 weeks and take 2 or more courses actually during the summer term. These programs are really popular because they are taught and guided by Creighton faculty, but also because they're really affordable. Creighton actually discounts the tuition for these programs quite a bit, meaning that even for, let's say, a 6-week program, the cost of the entire program, accommodation, everything is about $4,000, $5,000, whereas for a summer program of that length at another institution or an outside party program, it's quite a bit more. So we have a lot of different opportunities and they change every single year. And I'd encourage students, especially those who are maybe triple majoring and have 2 minors and want to learn a language, that they do have the opportunity still to study abroad, if just for a summer instead of a full semester. Awesome. So kind of as a last plea, I guess, to families during this summer preview time, we do ask that families work with us to help students start the process early and to really take initiative for choosing where they'd like to go study abroad, talking to one of us about where they'd like to go in the world and what they'd like to take and do. We really want students to kind of take advantage of this on their own because it is such an independent experience. And when they fly to the other side of the world, it's so helpful if they've started and kind of have that experience under their belts and have worked this hard to get there. The experience is really their own at that point. So we do ask, and I think we partner really well with parents and make a good team to encourage students really early to be coming to the study abroad fair, stopping into our office, and going through the visa processes and some of those more complicated things right as early as they can, and really taking initiative for all that stuff. So. All right. And as we mentioned, some of these tips for students to get started, any of these are good diving in points. I'd especially highlight exploring options on our website. Students can do that over the summer if they're bored or have a moment and they already want to start thinking about where they'd like to study abroad during their time at Creighton. Go to the website, there's more information there, and it is just creighton.edu/studyabroad. So pretty easy to find and already dig through some of those interesting programs. Come to an info session every single Friday at 12:30 p.m. The Global Engagement Office has an open info session. Students can swing in and hear from a past study abroad student about all of the different program options, how to get started. They'll even help them write their start an application if they'd like to. They can also come in and speak with a peer ambassador, one of those past students, or with one of us. They can come in for walk-in hours, which are every Tuesday and Wednesday, and they can also make an appointment online. We try to make it as accessible as possible so that every single person at least walks into the office, if not just to see what study abroad might be like. We really want students to take advantage of this because, as we've been mentioning, I have never ever heard a single person say, man, I studied abroad and it was the worst. I hated it. I wish I'd never done it. But every single year I have seniors flood into the office and say, how can I study abroad? I know I'm about to graduate, but is there anything left that I could do? Because they realize that their kind of time is flying by and they wanted to have that opportunity. So I hope to see all of your students in our office at some point, and we're happy to answer any questions.
And we have a study abroad fair.
Oh, we do. I
Sorry,
should have mentioned
yeah.
that. I'm sorry. Yeah, the Study Abroad Fair is September 12th. We have one every fall, and it is really, really big. About 500 or so students will attend this. If we do our jobs, though, students won't be able to miss this event. There will be posters plastered all over campus and online. So, yeah.
Any questions?
So how much of the locations are based on the major versus just their desire to go to a location?
Yeah. It's a good combo. Students often come in kind of with their mind made up about where they'd like to go, and that's a good time for us to have a conversation about what else is there that they'd like to get out of the experience rather than just the location. I'd say one of the biggest reasons students choose to go abroad is to travel, and sometimes they think travel just means, you know, Paris or Rome or in that area, when we actually have programs in South America, in the Dominican Republic. Students end up traveling all over the place. And in East Asia, all over. So we talk to them about what out of the travel do they want, and is there a program that would best fit their course needs and maybe their affordability, while still being kind of that goal of traveling. Yeah. Yeah, most of our programs do have a huge course range, so it's not often that we have to kick a student out of a program if it's their heart's desire.
You mentioned the Scotland program for
Yeah.
pre-meds like sophomore year. Are there other kind of pre-med, you know, I know it's a rigorous track and to get all the requirements in, is that kind of the main one?
For
designed
honors, that is a special
for
program for
honors,
honors,
okay.
but for pre-med and pre-health, there's quite a few. We
Oh,
really
okay.
recommend students talk to the EDGE pre-health advisors,
Okay.
and probably go pretty early so that they're still taking their literature, their history, those types of courses, not like organic chem while they're overseas. That tends to be more the norm. So we actually have a booth tomorrow if you and your student want to stop by and just kind of grab, there's more information about pre-med advising
Okay.
there too.
Great.
Yeah.
How about housing? Will they have a dorm if they go the first semester of their sophomore year and then have to pay for housing wherever they wind up going as well?
Good question. So wherever they're living abroad, the style of that housing will differ depending on the program. It may be a student house, you know, maybe dorm, maybe an apartment, but you wouldn't be charged double room and board. So if your student chooses to go abroad fall semester, he or she would pay room and board to the university overseas, but not to Creighton for that semester, but would be able to come back and live on campus that spring semester when they return. Because we work really closely with housing services here at Creighton, and if you can imagine, we have kind of a rotating door of every fall there are students who are abroad who need to come, who don't have housing in the fall, but when they come back, they need to have housing on campus, and every spring there are students who are, you know, going abroad. So it is kind of just this rotating door of students who are, you know, taking advantage of on-campus housing, but you would never be double billed. You wouldn't have to pay for housing here and abroad.
They don't necessarily get to choose roommate or anything, or where they're living then when they come back? Or?
They try, they,
Yeah,
they
it
work
depends.
really hard to do that. It depends though, they're not probably going to save, say Tom and Bill want to live together and Tom wants to just hold that place the whole semester. That's probably not going to happen. They're going to move maybe an exchange student into that spot or somebody who's studying abroad the next semester so that, you know, Bill can move into that slot. But we do actually find quite frequently there's so many students abroad each semester. There's over 115 each semester, so that's a lot of options as far as buddies to come back and live with. So I don't actually have too many students come and complain about that. We do work really closely with housing so that they get to know right away what their options are and how they might do the lottery. Things like that. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Is there like a cap or maximum for that Dominican Republic program, or like a target that?
Yeah, so there are maximums in pretty much all of our programs, and they're usually based on capacity or depending on the agreement that we have with the school. So the DR, because we do run it ourselves, right now the capacity is at about 25. And we are there, so it's a pretty competitive program. We do interviews with our students beforehand, so there's a whole study abroad application process and then in-person interviews as well to make sure that students are a good fit for that program. So really, if a student is interested in a particular location, the best thing to do is really apply early. But across the board, we ask students when they start a study abroad application for whatever program they're interested in, we always ask them to list a second and third choice as well. Because for it's always good to have backups. And maybe a student, for example, our Creighton in Spain program, partnership program, is really heavily geared toward business students. So sometimes we have students apply to that program and they're in the College of Arts and Sciences and those classes aren't really the best options for them. So then we start looking at plan B and C and say, you know, what do you really want to get out of study abroad and is there a different one that might work better? So we do ask that students apply for their first choice program, but then always have backups as well. Any other questions? I think people are ready to get out of here.
Yeah, we'll stick around. I
Yeah.
think there's cocktails or something around the corner.
Yes,
So.
and we'll be at the expo tomorrow
we'll be
too.
here.
From yes, we'll have a table at the expo from 11 to 1 with everybody else on campus. So cool.
Great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks guys.
thank you all.